There was 5 times I really wanted to quit because I was getting my butt kicked. I really was. In certain times where I was just like, what am I doing this for? He talked about how many people start real estate and give up. And he says the worst part about giving up is you never know what you lost.
All right, so today we have a very special guest. We have Kurt Dixon, and we've been having some tech challenges. So this is round 3 of starting this pod. Very interesting. Awesome day, though, and it's well worth it. You're going to get a lot of great nuggets. Kurt is someone who started as a student years ago and now has become just a great friend. It took him a while to talk about this, but he got a $71,000 plus check for his first payday. He'll tell you the exact amount, I'm sure, in a moment. And we'll dig into where his mindset comes from, his background as an immigrant, how he's developed over the years, the businesses he did before he finally dove into real estate and started experiencing success there. But if you're in a place to do so, grab your pen and paper or your notepad or your note taker out, because Kurt always drops a lot of nuggets. He's read a ton of books, he's studied a lot, and he's lived a lot of life, and he will always be dropping some fire wisdom. So I'm honored and grateful that you're joining us today, Kurt. How you feeling on round 3 of this podcast?
Feeling good, yes. I think it might be round 4 because we had some
we lost track. Tech is a fun thing. You know, it's one of those things. It brought up a conversation that you have an incredible mindset. Your tenacity, whether it was the first 11 months before you got your first deal, or whether it's been in tech problems or anything, I've watched you have an incredible mindset. Where does that come from? Where does your perspective come from?
I would say, well, trial and error for sure, but also personal development. Before I really did real estate, I was doing some network marketing, and I was much younger then. And usually, you do any kind of network marketing, there's always some personal development that comes in there, right? And one of the big influences to this day, really, is Jim Rohn, and his teaching is pretty much over the years molded me, right? It was a slow burn, but eventually it sank in.
What would you say, Kurt, first off, what kind of network marketing were you in? I have another question for you.
One of them was USANA, but there was one called Net Worth USA, which was a network marketing company to learn real estate, which was very interesting. Yeah, a long time ago. It eventually kind of petered out because I don't think they had it down to where how that compensation structure worked, right? So because usually you need something consumable product when you're doing any kind of network marketing. And I found out network marketing was not for me.
You had a lot of bumps in the roads and failures, but you took away something good from every one of them. That's something I've learned about you.
You have to.
Take me back to the moment on your first introduction to real estate when your uncle gave you mentioned in the pre-podcast interview, your uncle gave you some tapes or CDs. Like, what stood out to you about them, even though you didn't get it in the moment? Like, take us back to that moment. What year was that? How did that even happen?
Oh God, man, you'll know my age then. Jeez. Let's say it was many, many moons ago, decades. Yeah. As I was not quite 20 yet. I think I was maybe 16, 17. Yeah, 17. I could drive. And he'd been doing a lot of real estate, and I was curious about it. I don't know why I asked him about it, but he says, "Oh yeah, hey, I bought these. I really don't use them anymore." He said, "You can borrow them and then bring them back." And there were CDs, and I happened to have a CD player in my car, and it was 3 separate folders full of CDs. And when I started listening to them, I was like, okay, it was a lot. It was like drinking from a fire hose because I didn't know I didn't know. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm listening to it like, oh, how do I do that? But some of the things the guy was talking about, it just kind of sank in. Like, I mean, there was some personal development in that, and even mindset there. Like one of the things that I would say this was a big piece. He talked about how many people start real estate and give up. And he says the worst part about giving up is you never know what you lost, right? Wow. Imagine that. And that would tie into my first really deal by myself where I made the money, the 71,000 and change, right? Really 73. There was 5 times I really wanted to quit because I was getting my butt kicked. I really was in certain times where I was just like, what am I doing this for? And then that, along with the Jim Rohn, really brought me over the edge because I thought to myself, if I quit, I'll never know what I lost. And ironically, when I got that big check, I was like, crap, if I'd have quit, I'd have been like, this don't work, and I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. It wasn't always smooth, when, yeah, but that one check really just wiped everything out as far
What
as
was the
like,
exact amount?
I'm looking at it right here, $71,699.12. And I also got a check back from the guy who gave me the bridge loan because he gave me a 2%, charged me 2 points, which is 2%, right, with the loan he gave me. So a week later, he gave me a check for $1,933.50.
Wow.
Yes.
So netted just over 73,000 when it was all said and done.
Yeah, that was great. And even I got the money, I was like, can I keep this? And
How many calls did it take? You said 11 months. How many calls?
I think it's like 192. I mean, I have to find it, but it's about 192 to 196. I have it written down because I kept the binder that I had. Because I was
something like 19 calls a month. So you was talking to like one seller per day throughout the weekdays.
Yeah, I guess I guess that's about right. Yeah.
And I think that's really good perspective. Somebody's listening to this and they're going, oh my gosh, like 11 months to get a deal. Somebody else is listening and going, oh my gosh, 11 months and I could get a big check. Regardless of which side of that perspective you fall on, if you redo that math and say it was 192, 196, however many, 190 something calls, now it begins to put the power back in your hands, right? It begins to say, wait a minute, if I want to do 19 calls a week, instead of 19 calls a month, well, what if that's 11 weeks? That changes things. Now, a question for you. You mentioned Jim Rohn a lot. And a quote I always enjoy from Jim Rohn is, trying's risky, but wait till you get the bill for not trying. Yeah. And I think that's such a powerful phrase of what you're just talking about here. But you were talking about the parable of the sower. And if you don't mind, just tell us, because you described that in a little bit different way than I've ever heard it before. And it's very impactful of some things Jim Rohn was teaching you about that parable of the sower. Can you bring us up to speed on that?
Yeah. So even to this day, thank God for YouTube. If you type in the law of averages and the story of the sower, the video is about 15 minutes long. It comes from an audio called, I think it's Your First Year in Network Marketing. But if you know anything about Jim Rohn, even though he speaks for many different people, network marketing or even other companies, his philosophies are the same. But those two go hand in hand. He says the story of the law of averages and the story of the sower go hand in hand, right? And a good example is, he says, for the law of averages, if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear, right? So if you talk to 10 people and you get one, right? Now you have a ratio, right? So you know what your average is. So I talk to 10, I get one. And he says after a while, you talk to 10 and you get two. Why? Because you get better. And one day you talk to 3 and you get better. And he says, once you get to that point, you can write your own way because you know your numbers, right? And so as far as the story of the sower goes, he says, you have seeds, right? And you're planting seeds. And the seeds could be a good product, a good service, something that's worthy, right? And he says, as you're sowing, the birds are going to get some, the hot sun's going to burn them up, and what do they say? Something about the vines will choke them out. But he says the important thing is that despite those things, you keep on sowing because you don't want to chase birds, you don't want to complain about hot sun, because he says if you keep on sowing, to say the law of averages, it will always fall on good ground. And he says that some of the ground will give you a 10% return, some will give you 100%. But just know that if you keep on going, keep on sowing, it's always going to fall on good ground. The rest of the stuff, someone takes away a deal or someone talks somebody out of something or it falls through the last minute, you got to keep sowing, because if you quit, then, well, you get nothing.
I think that you not only have that as a philosophy, Kurt, but I see you live that. And whether it was the 11 months that it took you talking to the 195-ish sellers, 190-something sellers to get the deal till the dam broke, until you said, wait a minute, now you're just doing deals consistently. But I want to share some takeaways, because whether you're listening to this and you're going, hey, I'm just looking at my first deal. Like I got to get my first 71,000 or 7,100. My first check was 3,000. Whether you're on that side of the fence or whether you're experienced, Kurt is a incredible numbers guy when it comes to tracking his numbers, KPIs, how many dials it took to get a lead. And that's what's caused him to be such a real estate sniper, because Kurt doesn't just, spray and pray when it comes to, let me just try 92,000 things and see what works. He's very dialed in. And everyone listening to this, you're going to take some really good stuff away. But I want to go back to the young Kurt. You made it no secret about being young, about being broke, about being an immigrant. Like, tell us about that story. How did that happen? How did being an immigrant happen? How did you come to the U.S.? How did all that affect you?
So basically, my mom, she was a nurse, right? Or she's a nurse still. They had a nursing program to where they paid for the college, and then it was different people from, let's see, the Caribbean, Canada, Philippines, and somewhere else. Can't remember. But one of those deals where they paid for the young nurses college, and then you work for the hospital for, I think it was like 4 to 5 years, something like that. I can't remember what it was, but most of those nurses, they stayed. That's why, like, I grew up with like Filipino guys, Canadians, and other Caribbean people. Ironically, wound up in Southeast Texas, so I had friends who were Latino, Mexican, rednecks, Cajun people, pretty eclectic mix. So, and I'm very grateful because that we wound up in Texas. Because I could have wound up in New York. No offense against New York people, I have family there. Thank God I didn't grow up there. I've been in a different life, right? So that's as far as being an immigrant goes. I'm very much a Texan. In part and Jamaican really, but still very much a Texan. And as far as that goes, the question was about me being an immigrant, right? And what else did you need? I apologize. I kind of went off on that.
How was it? Like, when did you immigrate? How old were you? What was it like being broke and then moving into success?
Oh, got you. So I came here when I was a little kid. And the reason why I was broke, because it was my own, if you want to call them, setbacks and failures, or whatever you want to call that, right? I was searching. I kept on searching. That's why I did network marketing. I did eventually find sales, and I sold insurance for quite a while. But in between that, it was just like different jobs. And hindsight being 2020, I would have done it. Everybody says that it would have done things differently, right? But yeah. But if you think about it, everything that's happened to you led you to where you are, right? So if things are going well for me now, you maybe have to go through that crap, which many times is self-inflicted and sometimes not. But I'll take my own responsibility for stuff I've done. It's just, I wanted a better way. I just didn't know how. And I hate to say I used to have a broke mindset. I did. I sure did. And it took personal development and like personal responsibility just to take care of take responsibility for my own decisions. And I say, okay, I got to change. So let's start in that path. And admittedly, I wish it was faster, but it's such as life, What do they say? What's that one saying? The best time to plant a tree was yesterday, so plant it today. Yeah, that'd be a good example with me.
I want to go back, Kurt, because you come as an immigrant, you went through the network marketing, you heard the real estate CDs, all the various things. And when we met, you was just re-entering real estate or coming into real estate. And I remember that season of you dialing and dialing and dialing. And the one thing that always stood out to me was your consistency. Even though you didn't do 25 calls a day, you just were consistent. Every week you would tell me a number. Hey, I called so many sellers. And if you're listening to this, if there's one gift that I would want you to take away, it would be just be consistent in a thing long enough for it to work. And while you didn't, do 27 calls in a day and then quit, you did 19 calls a month on average, basically. And you consistently done that. I want to go back. Did you have something to add to that?
Yeah. So to add to that 196 was the people I got a hold of.
Got it.
So yeah. So I really made,
196 conversations.
there you go. It was 100. So in reality, I really dialed more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
I dialed way more.
a question for you on that. So you're going through here, you've called hundreds of people, you've had 190 something meaningful conversations. You screwed up. You probably burned a few deals just because you was new on the phone, right?
No, not at all.
So the time comes. I remember our conversations during this time, and you have this deal, you have this potential deal, you're going, you contract it. Like, take us through that moment, because you've done since then a lot of deals now in the last while. But take us back to that first one. Like, what was the emotion after the contract? What was the emotion when you thought it was going to fall through? What was the feeling you had to go find the money to fund it? Like, take me through that journey and what actually happened, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Okay, so yeah, when I followed up, I was waiting for it to fall through. I'll be honest, because in 11 months, I don't want to say I got my teeth kicked in a little bit, but this was during COVID, and
Yeah.
I live in Austin, and if anybody knows anything about Austin, man, our prices just shot up. Right, it was a true seller's market. I mean, people were just making stupid offers. I mean, stupid, like like greater fool offers. Like, and now they're regretting it. I hate to say it. They're paying 100,000 plus over asking, which, and now they're trying to sell it anyway. That's a whole other story. When I talked to the guy, everything was going too well because I had deals fall through last minute or got stolen or whatever, or stuff's happened, right? And I was like, okay, this is going a little too good. It's got to fall off point at some point. And even when I went to look at the house, and they're like, "Hey, we want to meet up," I'm like, "Okay, great." And I remember when we went up to the coffee shop, we agreed to the amount because they basically wanted to sell it for they owed, and then outside I'm calm, inside I'm like, "Man, is this gonna go through?" And then his wife says, "Let me see that contract," and she about 5 minutes I feel like she's looking at it and just hmm. Oh, and I'm like, oh God, just hurry up already, just say no. And then she's like, okay, it looks good. And I thought to myself, did she have any idea what she just read? But I went over it with them anyway. And even then I was like, okay, well now what am I gonna do? I gotta find a buyer for this thing. And turns out that wasn't hard either. And even the day of closing, we had a few little hiccups to go through. Now that I know what I know now, I did a double closing. And because they told me they didn't want any money out of it, they were adamant about it, but I was afraid they'd see what I made on it, right? Which would have been 83. I ate like $10,000 in closing costs, basically. Double closing costs, right? Plus plus just pretty much I paid double closing costs on it. And that's how I got to the 71,000, right? It should have really been 83. I would have gotten it.
Why were they selling? Was they behind on payments? They needed rehab. They couldn't rehab it. Like, what was the story?
Okay, it's going to sound crazy, right? So they thought there was heavy mold damage, and I believe them. But turns out there was some mold there, but um, the I guess the mitigation people came and looked at it and said just spray some bleach on it. The lady didn't believe him, so she went online to get a test, which found a bunch more mold. And then when they showed it to him, he says, "Yeah, when you open your front door, this is a mold outside. This is not the same stuff here." His wife was convinced the house, and I'm not exaggerating. She thought it was possessed by mold demons because it made him act different. So they one day just up and packed their stuff and abandoned the house because they just couldn't live there anymore. And I, I was like, okay. I was like, well, I can get you some more money. I was trying to be generous, but they're like, we want nothing to do with it. Just get rid of it. And I was like, okay. I contracted it, and then found the buyers, and then closed the deal.
You bought it, you found a buyer, you resold it, you double closed it, and then take me through that moment. You got the sellers paid off, you got them what they needed, you got your buyers in. They're going to rehab the thing and flip it. They're going to make a profit. You make a profit. Sellers got the debt relief for the house they wanted nothing to do with. Now, take me through that process. You go to the closing. was it a wire or a check?
It was a wire.
You get the wire. What happens? How long from the time you sign the docs to the wire hits your account? What's your emotions during that period? What's going on?
So it was in the evening time. So the wire the wire wouldn't hit. It was past the time. We're the last closing of the day, but I thought the money would come then, but it's going to take about a day, right?
Yeah.
I remember when I got the wire, I was like, man, can I keep this? Because I'll put it this way: those 11 months were just I had just like stuff happened and happened. I was like, is this money going to go through? And even when I got it, I'm like, I can keep this, right?
Yeah.
And so it felt real great because one thing it did teach me, or yeah, I'd say teach me if you want to say it like that, is man, it really made up for all the crap I thought I went through. What I did go through for the 11 months because I spent a decent amount of money, and I kept working and working, and I was in a very hot market, right? So when I say hot market, people were just making stupid offers. Like I thought I couldn't compete, and I'm like, am I ever going to find a deal? But I had enough faith to keep going, right? And that's why even when things went so smoothly, I was just internally there was part of me that didn't believe that okay, this is going a little bit too smooth for me. Something's got to go wrong, and it didn't because I think Murphy just happened in the last 11 months, and then finally it hit, right?
So that change happens. The wire hits your account. All your blood, sweat, and tears is made up for. You're able to pay off. Really, have done the sellers a service because without you, they'd have probably either lost it to foreclosure or dealt with someone who wouldn't have done what they said. You did what you said.
They were behind.
How far behind?
I think it was over 25. I remember.
25K behind on debt. So they were losing the house. Without they would have got zero plus a judgment, probably.
Yeah, they would have. It would have wrecked their credit. But they didn't really care. I don't know. I think it was really his wife that was just she didn't care, so he just kind of went with it.
So then, fast forward. We of course love to buy houses two ways, as I know you do. We like the cash ones to turn around and make some profit. That's awesome. Also, though, the majority of our business has always been buy on owner finance, sell on lease option, or when you're in Texas, like you are, buy on owner finance, sell on owner finance. Austin was a hot market in COVID, flowing, like going crazy. You decided to add a secondary market. I want to talk about this a little bit because somebody listened to this, maybe has done some deals and is doing a good job of deals. And maybe they're just doing wholesaling and they're in a market and they're going, I'm having trouble in this market or in this situation. Of course, the market's changed a lot, of course, since COVID and become more buyer friendly in a lot of aspects, but you decided to pivot. You added a second market. How did you decide the second market and how did that start treating you?
So it's from another investor, Glenn. He was talking about, you should invest in a shadow market. I'm like, what's a shadow market? And the shadow market is basically where if you're in a big city, right? Like if you're in Houston or Austin, Dallas, something like that, there's a lot of investors. Don't get me wrong, this deal's everywhere, but something outside of the main market where it's not in Podunk, middle of nowhere. It's like a moderately sized city where the numbers are more favorable for investments if you're going to do a rehab, but it's just big enough to where you can still make good money. So I took that, and basically my shadow market is Southeast Texas, right? And I knew the area. I grew up there, and I do have some boots in the ground. That was helpful, and I started marketing there. I still do some marketing in Austin. In fact, I'm actually going to start ramping that up soon because the market's starting to flatten out here and sanity's come back. But the shadow market has been pretty good to me.
What is that shadow market?
Southeast Texas.
And how far is that from you?
4 hours.
So you do that virtually there, and you have some family members there, right? Who play as your boots on the ground.
Yeah. It would not work if I didn't have boots in the ground. Just
an important note, because the majority of deals you do are in your shadow market.
Yep, 90%.
I want to shift gears as we come toward the end of this. Time flies when we're together. I think I laugh, when it's just you and I hanging out, I feel like I laugh more than I do any other time. And you bring so much joy to the entire, one of the mastermind community, to the entire mastermind community and everybody you're around. And I appreciate that about you. But I want to ask you here, because do you know how many deals you've done since over the last handful of years? Is it dozens? Has it hit 100 by now? Or do you know about how
Oh, not 100 yet. No, I've been averaging about one deal a month, give or take.
Okay.
Sometimes
So
a bit
one
more.
deal a month, so averaging 12 a year, about.
Yeah, that's about right, actually.
So a deal a month, you've been doing that now for going on 5 years?
No, that didn't really start till about last 2 years, because I had a bit of time after that where I wasn't as heavily involved in real estate. So when I joined the mastermind, joining the mastermind helped level up my business, because I wasn't doing about a deal a month. I was doing a deal every few months, and because I wasn't keeping track of my numbers properly. I was afraid to spend money on lead sources, right? But for my first conversation when with you and Leo, we talked. You told me a few things, and I was like, okay, I need to do these paper leads, and I picked my 3 sources, right? So I did that, and then and because of Glenn, I started keeping track. I mean, even when I did my taxes, I put my deals per quarter in the 4 quarters, right? So I know how much I made, where the source was, and that's how I found out which source was working the best, because I have one source that was doing 80% of my deals. And
Something to be said there, because finding your 3 sources, that's the point, is making sure you have one that's kicking off, and when it ever slows down, you got another one. And
Exactly.
when you know your numbers, it's so easy in this business to get sloppy when you start doing deals, whether it be sloppy with your tracking or, it's kind of working. There's money in the account, so you're good. And the moment you decided to buckle down and start tracking, and thanks for sharing that, a deal a month for the last couple of years now, what a powerful shift it's been. And I'm so grateful that you're part of the family here. Question for you, for somebody listening to this, maybe they're like you a few years ago, they're young and they're starting out and they're broke, or maybe it's just somebody who's been in real estate investing, but it's like they just haven't broke through the dam yet. They're kind of spinning their wheels. Maybe they're doing some deals, but it's kind of overwhelming sometimes. Maybe they're trying to get that first deal. Like, what's your word of encouragement to them or advice to them of like, here's what I would tell you if it was me?
Oh, wow. I would refer to a poem by Calvin Coolidge. It's up here. It says, "Press on." It's very short. If you don't mind me reading it.
Yeah,
It says,
please.
"Press on. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts." It says, "Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan 'Press on' has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race." Calvin Coolidge. So
That's good.
that's very good. So I would say persistence, and if you're I would keep track, because my tracking is not very sophisticated. I know my rough numbers. I know enough to where I see these deals are coming from here with the sources. Yeah, I would just say just keep going, and do it logically, of course. Don't be blind about it. You got to be purposeful, and when you're pressing on, and know that the people who do it long enough will succeed. I mean, if you quit, you'll never know what you lost, and then all of a sudden it doesn't work. I could have said that, but I had 5 good times I could have quit, and I look back now, I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd say this.
Keep
That's it.
doing what worked for somebody else. You have a high chance of it eventually working for you. I think that's a powerful thing. Last question, Kurt, before I ask, next to last question. Do you ever think back, what if you would have quit in months 5 or month 9 or month 10, where things might be now?
I'd be really, really broke. Maybe, I don't know. It's still searching, I suppose, because I knew I wanted to do real estate. I don't know. That's a good question, Andrew. That's a really good question. I can tell you this much: probably nothing good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an inspiration you are, and I thank you for that. My final question for you, brother. How can people find you? Facebook or otherwise, or email or social security number? I'm joking about
Oh,
that.
no. Yeah. Blood type. Yeah. uh, Gosh. I'm on Facebook. Let's
Cool.
see. Yeah,
So
I'm
let's
on
go follow
Facebook.
you on Facebook.
Yeah, I haven't. I gotta be honest. I'm just now getting into embracing technology a bit more. Besides Facebook, I am on Instagram. So I think it's gonna be Kurt A Dixon. Facebook. If you can remember this one, yeah. Kurt A Dixon is my email. There should be. Yeah, they can find me on Facebook, and I'll be wearing a black shirt. I'll be smiling.
That's,
So
so
pretty
just
much like that.
screenshot that and look for it. I got it. Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Kurt. Thank you,
Oh,
Kurt. Thank you.
oh,
Shout out.
one
Yes,
last
please.
thing. If you find me on Facebook, it'll say I still live in Argentina. That way you know it's me. If you don't recognize my face, there we go.
That's good. Good nugget to have. And I'm sure there's a story there. Maybe we'll cover on the next go around. Guys,
Oh
I
yeah.
trust you got an incredible amount of wisdom, some great nuggets, some takeaways, some inspiration today. I say thank you, Kurt, for being with us. Shout out to John,
Thank you.
our producer. Thank you for making all the tech work once we encountered those challenges. And thank you, every one of you, for being here, for listening, for joining in. Go follow Kurt on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll see you in the next episode.